Hello everybody, today I have a really quick video for you about this Gravebone deck. So this is just going to be a short replay of this. I kind of made this deck a while ago, but I regretted never filming it, so I took it to rank a little bit and just wanted to show off what it can do. So the idea behind this deck is that it's an undead Gravebone deck. Now, Gravebone has an ability that lets you revive an ally from your graveyard for 4 shadow energy, and that synergizes really well with a lot of the undead stuff that like to be brought out from the grave and be put in the grave in general. So here, I went ahead and summoned Popsicle instead of summoning Bad Santa on turn 2 because it's really important to get an undead in the graveyard, and actually, it's really important that that ally has Ice Attack. And the reason why is because of this card called Suspended Animation. Now, Suspended Animation takes an ally with Ice Attack out of the grave and onto your board and freezes your opponent's board. And it makes it a homunculus with 2 attack and 3 health. But that's really good, especially because you can use that in conjunction with a card called Kiruth. Now, this location has been pretty significantly nerfed, I would say. It used to be a lot better, but it's still decent because you can renew 3 resources whenever you take something out of the graveyard. So we're going to see that happen here. And here's like the huge combo. So we bring out the Forgotten Horror, we renew 3 resources, then we play another Popsicle, and then I decide to just go for damage here because we're against a mage. Otherwise, I might have used Popsicle's ability to kill that artisan. But you can see how just on turn 5, we have that massive turn where we can bring something from the grave, renew 3 resources, so we're technically on like 8 resources, and just do a lot of stuff. Our opponent sadly has the supernova in response for that, so it wasn't as devastating to them as it could have been. And we're going to see our opponent recover a little bit here. Now, this is a good card against us, which is the Distortion Harness, which is going to shuffle the Kiruth back into our deck and let our opponent search for Irem. And so now we know that our opponent is playing an Irem deck. Here, I realize I really need some card advantage, so I just go for that Tome of Knowledge draw, and then I just play the Popsicle down. I feel like against Irem, you usually shouldn't play too many allies, but here it kind of helps us if they die, because then we can just load up our graveyard with more undead stuff, and that can be helpful. So, yeah, but part of the downside is going to be letting our opponent use stuff like Shadow Bolt with Irem. And so, generally speaking, when you're against Irem, you probably don't want to play too many allies. Now, of course, you need allies to win for the most part, so you're kind of in a catch-22 situation here. So here I go ahead and play the Kiruth, and we see here a little bit of a bug. I didn't use the ability, but my shadow energy is still decreased by 1, so I think that is a bug here. But I went ahead and did that because I figured that our opponent would have to use Distortion Harness to search out the Irem, costing 1 shadow energy, and they only had 1 shadow energy, so if they did that, they couldn't also activate Irem. Here, we can just go ahead and win the game on this Necromancer's Shroud, because we can revive our Death Collector, renew back up to the amount of resources we need, 5 resources, to then Supernova, and therefore win the game. So yeah, that's the deck, and just to explain that some of the good and bad matchups, I would say this is a great deck against any ally-based builds. There I kind of probably got a little bit lucky against Irem there. Usually you do tend to struggle a little bit more against those decks that don't need to play allies. And for example, I lost to Koran here, who played a solo Gwen, and that was a real struggle. And I also lost to Zaladar, who was able to... that was the feed bomber, actually. Feedback loop me. But if you go against an ally-based build, what's really great about this is you've got stuff like Forgotten Horror and Suspended Animation to really control your opponent using freezes. So your opponent oftentimes will build up a huge ally board, and you can just freeze it, you could supernova it, and just spam your own allies, and by then they're going to probably take too much damage from your allies to really recover. The nice thing about suspended animation is you can actually keep chaining it. So every turn you'll freeze their board, renew 3 resources if you have Kiruth, and just go crazy. So yeah, it's not as good as it used to be, I would say overall, because the nerf to Kiruth really hurts. You do need that shadow energy, and the fact that you no longer can build up that shadow energy because you're always losing 1 shadow energy every turn really does make Gravebone a lot tougher to use. But we did get a couple of side buffs, I would say, that makes it not terrible. So Mending Golem was a new card that was released around the same time of the Kiruth nerf. That is another discard outlet. I would say it's not as good as False Blood Cultist in this deck just because you do need more card advantage. And also the buff of Tome of Knowledge to 1 resource really helps it as another draw option for this deck, which this deck really does kind of struggle a little bit with having enough draw power, I would say. You could have before considered something like Amulet of Conjuring, but I would say now with Kiruth making you lose a shadow energy every turn and seemingly being bugged to make you lose it regardless of whether you activate it or not, is going to make it really hard to use Amulet of Conjuring. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this deck, and yeah, thanks for watching.